Fires are not unusual on Mount Diablo, but the fire that hit in September 2013 was unusually fierce. In less than a day, a spark from target practice on private property was raging out of control with 80 to 100-foot flare-ups on the south and east sides of the mountain. 100 homes were evacuated. 6 planes, 11 helicopters, 25 bulldozers, and 142 fire engines came out to combat the blaze. Remarkably, no lives or homes were lost. But over 4 days, the fire blackened more than 3,100 acres. 5 of Save Mount Diablo's nearby properties, all future additions to the state park, narrowly missed being burned. But a 6th, the 165-acre Viera-North Peak property in Upper Perkins Canyon, was cremated the first day and night of the fire. After the fire died down, Seth Adams and I rushed out to see the park. At first glance,
North Peak, whose east and north side is normally really lush with vegetation, looks like one of those mountains you see around Death Valley where it's all bare soils and geology rather than vegetation. It's got a blackened gray haze all over it from all of the ash, and the upper 3/4, there's barely a spot of any kind of green. It's all shades of charcoal and gray. You're looking at the bones of North Peak. It's practically a moonscape with just a few trees here and there. Most of them were gone, and it was heavily wooded.
Then we headed into Perkins Canyon. The meadow was hot and silent, with a few trees still smoking. Some of the biggest oaks were scorched but standing, with acorns falling as we watched. Gophers had already been digging, creating fresh rototilled soil on top of blackened grasses. And there were dozens of black beetles, a species we'd never seen before, biting our necks and arms. I later learned they were called charcoal beetles, which are attracted to heat and smoke. Up here where the Perkins Trail takes off, we entered a part of the park where the fire burned even more angrily. Right beside the trail sign was the skeleton of a tall gray pine, otherwise known as Pinus sabiniana, or the gasoline tree. Gray pines contain relatively large amounts of N-heptane, a chemical in gasoline. This makes them and Jeffrey pines much more flammable than other pines. Their cones explode like hand grenades in fires, spreading flames as they roll down slope. The sights along Perkins Trail were shockingly different from what we had seen the spring before. Then there was a rare yellow flower called brewer's dwarf flax, as well as vetches, lomatians, whim poppies, phacelias, white mariposa lilies, scarlet larkspur, blue-eyed grass, and more. We saw early bloomers such as buttercups and late bloomers such as Mount Diablo globe lilies, all in the same day. And we looked into the leafy upper gorge and heard a chorus of frogs. But on a windy day right after the fire,
this is one area where you'd have to walk through with your head on a swivel looking for both rattlesnakes and poison oak. Not so much now.
we see those places where gophers or ground squirrels have already turned over the soil. I asked Ken if he's surprised they got to work so quickly.
No, and I'm sure they had a lot of residents down there they didn't particularly care for. I'm sure every tarantula running around went into the gopher holes, any toads, any snakes, and even rattlesnakes. So I'm sure they were busy evicting the unwanted tenants.
And what about those tarantulas? Females and immature males were probably safe in their burrows when the fire hit, but most mature male tarantulas were roaming around looking for mates.
They weren't going to outrun any fire, so may have been roasted. They don't have good stamina. They have lungs that aren't really very well developed, so they can move quickly for just a short distance, and then they gotta rest.
While making this guide in the fall of 2013, we wondered about the big oak trees. Many still had green leaves, but may have been doomed by girdling at the base. Having the advantage of more time, you can figure out their fate by comparing the post-fire pictures in this guide with what you're seeing as you walk around today. Now walk down the Perkins Trail until it ends at Perkins Creek in about 1/3 of a mile. When you reach the creek, we'll stop by some big sycamores with their white mottled trunks. That's where we'll talk about how the future looked just a few weeks after the fire.